Psychoanalysis and Philosophy, Purpose of Pathology. Namaste. Does pathology have a purpose or is it just plain misfortune? Iconoclastic as it is an fascinating subject to discuss, and we have for it psychoanalysis consultant Mr. Himanshu Vaidya. Namaste.
Namaste.
So, we have another important and so fascinating topic here with us today. So, we would like to know, is pathology not just plain misfortune?
The question is deep and compound. It contains within itself many other questions. And unless we answer all those implicit questions, we cannot reach an answer to this question, which in itself is quite deep and complicated. One can start with what pathology means to a layman. And from there, slowly enter into the meaning of the word pathology and then try to answer whether it is plain misfortune or can there be a purpose to it.
Right.
To a layman, the word pathology means a negative deviation from the normal. So anything that deviates from the normal, not on the side of extraordinary, but on the side of an aberration, that aberration is called a pathology. And there are two parts to it. There is a statistical deviation from the norm, and it is somehow creating distress or impeding progress at individual, social, or collective levels. Let us start with an individual. For an individual, anything that causes distress and lowers down the quality of life, anything that causes displeasure or impedes the speed of progress, that for the individual is pathology. Pathology can be biological, it can be psychological. We will confine our discussion to psychological pathology, but for an individual, that is pathology.
Right.
Second aspect, in some cases, the individual may not feel distress. Individual may not feel loss of progress, but people around him, the family members, they feel distress, they feel lack of progress, and it hurts them, this deviation from the normal. And in those cases, like for example, narcissistic personality disorder or psychosis or mental retardation, the person himself may not feel that he has a pathology, but people around him feel he has a pathology. So even if distress and lack of progress and lowering of quality of life is not experienced or recognized at individual levels, it is so recognized by the family members, and then also we call it pathology.
Right.
Third aspect is a social aspect. That for the society, it is one productive member less and one dependent, highly costly to manage person more. So society looks at it as a high cost individual, as lack of contributor to the society. It looks at the person as deviating from the norm, which is not acceptable to the society. Because the fear is what everyone goes that way. And if that becomes normalized. So this sort of scale expansion of pathology to engulf the whole of society and the pathology becoming a norm is a terrifying prospect for the society. And therefore, every society has to stigmatize and sort of pathologize the pathology. So these are the three aspects. The fourth aspect of the story is the medical aspect. That in terms of the medical parameters, when certain biochemicals go out of certain ranges, or the person deviates from a norm of the society or of normal individuals as they are defined, or the person reports some distress or impairment, then from a medical psychiatric point of view, it becomes a pathology.
Right.
And lastly, from a psychoanalytic point of view, It's a very different story because psychoanalytic description of pathology is very liberal and in a sense very innocent
Hmm.
and more accepting. It is not as stigmatizing as the psychiatric description of the term is.
True.
So a person may have uh, some obsessive traits at very mild level. So psychiatry may not diagnose him either with OCD or with OCPD, but a psychoanalyst
Hmm.
will call him having the pathology of obsession.
Right.
That's a psychoanalytic description of the term, which is very liberal and very pervasive, almost universal. Because
Hmm.
psychoanalysis believes that everyone has some pathology. There is nothing like a perfect body or a perfect mind. And
Right.
pathology is a continuum. It is not that there is
Hmm.
health and there is pathology and there is nothing in between and you jump from one to the other. In fact, it is a
Right.
continuum and most of us are moving dynamically in that continuum, mostly in the normal zone so we don't recognize, but we are on a continuum
Hmm.
and we share in a micro way everything that a person with pathology has in an exaggerated way. Not only that,
Right.
the conditions of stress, a person can easily move from the zone of normalcy to the zone of pathology and come back when the stress is gone or when the therapeutic healing has happened.
Right.
So again, the concept of pathology is very dynamic, very flexible, very universal, and very essential in psychoanalysis compared to very quantitative and very impairment oriented in psychiatry.
Hmm.
In spirituality, again, there is a very different conceptualization of it, where
Okay.
uh, many of the states of pathology that many individuals pass through are regarded as very natural states occurring in the spiritual journey of the person. And this is
Hmm.
something which has been recognized for a very long time by many spiritual traditions in India and abroad.
Hmm.
That many of the uh, descriptions given in DSM actually are transitional phases which naturally occur in the spiritual journey of a person. Slowly, this view is also getting some acceptance from the West. A very important person, Stanislav Grof, Professor Stanislav Grof, he
Okay.
calls this particular set of pathologies as spiritual emergencies.
Hmm.
So he says, just as there are biological emergencies and psychological emergencies, these are spiritual emergencies we wrongly classify as just unfortunate pathology.
Right.
So these
Hmm.
are the various opinions on the term pathology. And then we come to that once we are fine with all these various descriptions, their understanding, and whatever synthesis we can make out of it, the next difficulty is of how does it manifest and what to do about it. So there are various ways societies have tried to tackle with what to do about it, from chaining people up to killing people to burning them alive to thinking of them as possessed to thinking of them as those who require psychological support and care,
Hmm.
and to thinking of this pathology as a psychological asset, something very precious, not something to despise. So, from burning the person alive to thinking about the person with pathology as being lucky to have a precious asset in his journey of personal growth,
Hmm.
the whole continuum of possibilities exist. And various societies at various points in time and various individuals and schools of therapy and medicine have treated the entity called pathology in very different ways. So
So,
to answer the question where it is whether it is pure misfortune or is there something else, I think we have a range of answers to this question. There is one group of people who just calls it nothing more than pure misfortune. To another group of people which says this is something which is universal and everyone has it to various varied degrees. To some people, to another group of
Right.
people who call it spiritual emergencies, inevitable, difficult events which happen in one's developmental journey. To the fourth group of people which view pathology actually as an asset and something very precious to work on and work with, and which facilitates our work on ourselves in our own developmental and spiritual journey. So from pure misfortune to pure fortune, we have a whole continuum of possibilities on how various people and groups and societies at various times answer the question, what is pathology?
Right. So if we keep aside the theoretical part of the pathology, today we would like to have a discussion over how have our views on psychopathology changed over history. As you mentioned, in different tribes and different cultures, it was seen as sometime being as possessed or something like something unusual happening. So what about the history of psychopathology, how it has changed?
Uh, we can view the history of pathology, psychopathology in particular, as a movement from being in chains to requiring holding. So from chains to holding is a full journey that we see. Michael Foucault had also deliberated on the same subject in his book, The History of Madness.
Mhm.
How at
Okay.
various points in history, people looked at madness and treated people with psychological difficulty. Ancient
Hmm.
times, people thought of this as possession by evil spirits and took a view that some holy men or shamans or local doctors can exorcise the evil spirits and restore health. Then we had this time of the medical opinion when this
Hmm.
was looked upon as either a derangement of the neurological structure in some way, or something incurable, or something which quietly, not explicitly, but had a possession angle. And whatever be the reason, which was not clearly known, those with psychological difficulties were treated very harshly, put into asylum, put into chains, put to torture. And this was kind of combination of the medical model and the church's model. The church used to uh, think of them as possessed by devils or his evil spirits.
Hmm.
So it was a combination of uh, what passed off as a medical model had implicitly into it the spirit of the church. And that was another time.
Hmm.
And then we had
Right.
looking at pathology as a sickness, not something as a evil possession or a drama put up by a person or something a horrible contagion which others can get or something so despiseful morally that the person has to be condemned and tortured. From there, we
Hmm.
move on to a situation that this person also was a patient and has to be treated with kindness and care. And it is our limitation if we cannot figure out what is happening inside the body and the mind and we cannot cure it. So it is our limitation, not the patient's limitation, that he is not well.
Right.
So the onus shifted from the patient to the healer, that the responsibility that the patient is not well is on the healer and not on the patient. And he has to be treated
Hmm.
with kindness and care. This is another model, a very humanitarian model which started off towards the middle or early part of the last century. And then we had some people like Jung who talked about pathology as an asset. I will repeat this twice, I think, in our conversation today, about one person who had come
All
to
right.
Jung for treatment of neurosis. Jung made a very good comment. He said, thank God he became neurotic.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was that the person was so cut off from his own authentic self and engrossed so much in the outer social life and outer standards that he was leading a
Mm.
completely false life, a superficial life. And his neurosis brought
Okay.
him back to himself, and he had to undertake the inner journey only because of the neurosis. Had neurosis
Right.
not been there, he would have never undertaken the inner journey, and he would have spent the whole of his life in a superficial way. So in that sense, Jung said that for many people, a mental sickness is an invitation to an inner journey. And
That's really beautiful.
yeah, and this is true for many people, that the psychological sickness becomes an occasion to take a turn in life and undertake an inner journey. And if this crisis had not come, the person would have led a very superficial and, in eyes of many, a meaningless life. So
Hmm.
this is another view of pathology, and how people have been dealing with it. Jung deals with it in a very positive way. And similarly, uh, there are people on the other side. Like if we look at some societies, in ancient Christian
Hmm.
times, they would burn the person alive or they would kill and torture the person. When we look at
Hmm.
societies in Germany in Nazi times, they killed those
Right.
people as being um inferior people, and they did not want them to reproduce children because they thought the children also will have the same genes and the same problems. So to
Hmm.
create a
Hmm.
race which was healthier biologically and psychologically, they would kill people who biologically or psychologically had some transmittable problem.
Hmm.
That's another extreme of society where the society kills people with a pathology. And uh, now we have a welfare state society which actually creates institutions which does affirmative action, which reserves jobs for people with mental retardation or psychological problems.
Right.
And psychological problems are seen as uh, disabilities for which the person is not responsible, and it needs social support and affirmative action. So from burning the
True.
people and killing the people in concentration camps to the state now putting up affirmative action and holistic healing centers, the state and the society also has come a long way in the way it deals with pathology. And today we don't believe that pathology is something the person fakes, or something which is only possession, or something which is just a neurological derangement. We see it as a complex biopsycho-social issue, and it requires that complex holistic answer for healing this complex question. So these are the various ways in which society has addressed pathology at various times. And fortunately, today we are in a far more humanitarian time, and we are about to enter
True.
into an era of holistic healing response to pathology.
So, does pathology have a purpose?
Many groups and many opinions. The classical psychoanalytic opinion is that it is it does not have any purpose. It's just a plain misfortune. It does not have any more purpose than typhoid or malaria has. A sickness is a sickness is a sickness. That is the kind of thinking. But some psychoanalysts like Jung believe that the sickness also has a purpose. And the purpose is to bring the person back to undertake an inner journey and heal himself within so that he can go faster in the outer world. The speed in the outer world is determined by the health inside. The outer and the inner are not separate. In the outer world,
Right.
if you are not able to do something, often we realize that the brakes are applied in the inner world.
True.
So the outer also has its brakes, but often the brakes are inside also. So
Right.
Jung believed the pathology has a purpose. The spiritual world always believed that. Schools of spirituality in India and abroad always believed that psychopathology had two aspects to it. The karmic aspect of repayment of bad karmas, as well as the journey of life aspect, which was independent of repayment and was a completely new action. And that was a purposeful action to accelerate evolution. And the third was that pathology often brings out the weakest part in us. And when we heal the weakest part in us, that weakest part, after being healed, becomes the strongest part of us, and it is stronger than what it is in most normal people. For example, if one has too much of fear and one is able to heal it at its roots, one ends up with so much of courage that the courage is far more than a normal person has.
Right.
And what was the weakest part becomes transforms into its opposite of a greatest strength. So the weakest part often is an
So wouldn't that
indication.
be a kind of reaction formation of the defense mechanism?
We are talking of profound healing, not of a defensive
Okay.
mechanism. What you are saying can happen.
Okay.
A defensive reaction, reaction formation defense can happen. But we say, let us say we go into therapy, we undo that defense. We face the fear as it is.
All right.
And after facing the fear, when we heal it at its roots, and then after that, what courage comes up, that courage becomes our greatest strength. So
we have the immunity towards the pain and the challenge.
Yes, because we have
psychological
seen the
immunity.
Yes, because we have seen the worst of it. And we have not collapsed when we saw the worst of it.
Right.
We were there in some measure integrated to at least work upon it when it was at its peak. And therefore, often it is also said spiritually that your difficulty gives you an indication of what strengths you can develop. So this is a very different view of pathology. So in spirituality, the view is of karmic payback, of experiencing something and developing a strength quite opposite to what is troubling you.
Right.
So these are very different aspects within psychoanalysis, between psychoanalysis and spirituality. And outside of both of them, within broadly psychotherapy, there is a recognition that what we may see as a pathology may be a parapsychological phenomena, a mystical phenomenon, or a spiritual emergency. So these are sort of new propositions that are just getting into the circle of reflection on pathology in the mainstream course of schools.
So one of the intriguing aspects is coexistence of pathology and extraordinary talent. How can we understand that part?
Now, this is where the movement has actually to start and take forward the humanizing of pathology. We don't want to get into idol worship of pathology, but we definitely want a humanizing of pathology. And when we see where pathology exists, and it leads to some very interesting exploration. On one hand, we can see pathology existing in a small quantum in practically everyone. Secondly, we see on the negative side, those with uh, pathology also are serial killers. So every person with pathology is not necessarily a genius. The serial killer, the sociopath, the psychopath also has pathology. A person who is completely incapacitated and is in the asylum or it is at home but is not able to do any work for himself or others or even lead a normal life, he also has pathology. So essentially, every person with pathology is not a genius. However, the reverse is a substantially true statement. I would not say 100% of talented people have a pathology, but I would definitely say that a great number, a great proportion of people who are extraordinary have some pathology or the other. It is difficult to find a healthy genius. I'm not saying impossible, but I would say not more than 25% would fall into that category of a healthy genius. And therefore, often we see pathology and extraordinary genius going together. Let us take two examples. Example on the artistic side of Van Gogh. Extraordinary explosive talent and extraordinarily strong pathology. Take second example of Professor John Nash. Other side of the spectrum. Van Gogh was a painter, this man was a mathematician. And all his life he had schizophrenia, at least from the young age. And despite having schizophrenia, won Nobel Prize in mathematics. And both of them went together. The work in mathematics and schizophrenia both were together. And if you meet people who have been around geniuses, we can easily find the idiosyncrasies of those people and the pathology of those people. It may not be public, but definitely can be found. So it is true that a large number of extraordinary people have pathology. The reverse, of course, is not true. When we get into the analysis of it, okay, why it is so, the scientific answer is we don't know. But the speculation that we can do is this, that in a yogic scheme of things, essentially we are dealing with very high amount of life energy. If the earth center and the ego are not strong enough to regulate this high amount of life energy, a part of it goes into creativity and a part of it goes into pathology. And we see both of them coexisting together. It is the same high amount of energy which occasionally goes more into creativity, constructive creativity, and a part of it goes into pathology. And occasionally much of it goes into pathology, occasionally much of it goes into creativity. But that seesaw continues. And essentially we are looking at high amount of life energy which is not controlled fully because the earth center is weak, the ego is weak, and there is too much of what we call in Ayurveda the air principle. Earth and the fire principles are not enough to control the air principle. So this is one of the ways to sort of start understanding. We still don't have an explanation, but we have a starting point, at least from the ancient traditional knowledge, how to approach this conundrum of very high talent and very high pathology. And we also see this in practical life, not only in academic and artistic life. A great number of politicians, leaders, sports people, businessmen, studies in leadership tell us that a large proportion of leaders in society in various areas have extraordinarily high degree of pathology, narcissism, and sociopathy, at times even psychopathy.
True.
So
True.
we see that even in normal life, that when we look at leaders in various areas of life, we see quite an amount of pathology in those leaders. So I think from observational point of view, from taking extreme examples of Van Gogh and Dr. Nash, and also from our experience in everyday life, it comes out very clearly that extraordinary talent most of the times goes together with some sort of pathology, and there are very few healthy geniuses. And why this is so, and how we can correct the pathology in the otherwise genius person, those are the questions for future that we really need to uh, answer. And one starting point can be the ancient traditional knowledge that we have on this subject.
Despite of having ancient traditional knowledge also, and now the prospect of pathology is changing into a holistic frame where society is trying to be supportive. How does society look at it in totality?
I think there is still in much of the world a huge amount of stigma associated to pathology. Society looks at it essentially in a utilitarian way, that it is a cost and it is a burden to the society. One less productive person and one more element of cost. Society is also worried that it should not pass genetically on to the new generation. Unfortunately, society does not reflect on the child upbringing practices which are at the root of much of the trouble. There are a few people who are constitutionally destined to have a psychological disease. Most people, almost 90% of people who have a psychological pathology have so because of not only constitution, but primarily because of childhood experiences. Some of them adult experiences, and some of them combination of experiences and constitution. But majority of the problem, psychopathological problems, are essentially because of experiences. And in that, the child upbringing practice of society is central. Unfortunately, societies don't reflect upon it. So while they don't want pathology, they don't scientifically analyze and address how to solve this problem. Societies also look at it in a different way based upon their developmental levels. In societies where education is less, we still have the notion of being possessed. And society still takes people to exorcists, the black magic experts, and all kinds of inhuman things are done to the patients. Society still does not think about eugenics, a very important element. That how to ensure the genetic code of the father and the mother so that we can reduce this prevalence from a constitutional point of view.
Right.
So this is completely a forgotten factor, eugenics. And it has much to do with the fear that eugenics will lead to racial discrimination and racial conflicts. And it's one of the difficult points where political correctness has triumphed over science.
Right.
Fortunately, slowly, I think, as education moves on, societies are becoming more humanitarian, and more and more societies are looking forward to holistic healing of pathology. And this is catching on far faster than what the mainstream professionals acknowledge. Issues like homeopathy, holistic Reiki, pranic healing, Tai Chi, acupressure, all different kinds of healings which are there are slowly getting into addressing of pathology. And we are also recognizing the importance of social support groups and social support systems. And we now see many of these groups on Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, and so on. So societies in this age of digital movement is coping in many different ways to humanize and sort of get into a holistic healing mode, but you still have a mainstream society and a forward-looking society, the two groups in societies. So apart from the developmental level, these groups inside the society also are exerting a pressure on this phenomena. What is required? Intense social communication campaign on the issue of pathology and mental health with celebrity support. Unless we do that, an intense and a largely big, well-funded social campaign with celebrities into it, we will not be able to destigmatize the entire area of mental health and look forward to pathology in a more scientific, humane, and holistic way.
Right.
Lastly, I think also a positive way.
So, how has psychoanalysis viewed pathology and its possible purpose?
Classical psychoanalysis, Freud climbed beyond the central flow, the central river of psychoanalysis, so to say. The Nile on the banks of which civilization started in that sense. The mainstream psychoanalysis never looked at it as anything more than misfortune and a sickness to be cured. Jung looked at it in a more positive way, that it is purposeful, and not only purposeful, it is precious in some sense. Because it's a kind of an inner turning, a manthan, and only from manthan you get something precious out of it. So it is something very precious. Jung looked at it that way. People like Stanislav Grof, who had training in psychoanalysis in their early life, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it is so. And many others who had psychoanalytic background and then turned to holistic healing and spirituality. Many of them view pathology in a more positive and benign way as a spiritual emergency or as a developmental process. There is a very good paper by Winnicott on this. The title of the paper is The Value of Depression. Yeah. That it is not just that you are sad for a few days and you are good for nothing for a few days. There is some value in that inner journey. So there are many papers of this type which view pathology in a more benign and positive way as a part of our developmental journey. And not to put it at the same level like a malaria or a typhoid. It's a very different kind of entity. We can't equate psychological sicknesses with biological sicknesses as though they are one. They are not one, they are very different.
Yes.
If the mosquito bites you and you get malaria, that's a completely different sequence of events. And something is deeply sad inside of you and calls you to attend it is a completely different set of events.
Right.
So this false equivalence of the biological and psychological is a gravely mistaken equivalence. So Winnicott views it very positively. Kohut also was very positive on many fronts in viewing pathology as a developmental arrest. And many people who are in the area of psychoanalysis and spirituality, like Dr. Alan Winstein, Dr. Rudolph Ballantyne, who had training both in psychoanalysis and spirituality, Indian spirituality particularly, they view
Okay.
pathology very, very positively. Not that there is nothing negative in pathology, not that we should
Mm-hmm.
print invitation cards and invite pathology, not that, not to stretch this argument to absurdity, but the point that there is definitely a an area in pathology which is just sickness and nothing more, just misfortune. That is definitely one area. But there is a very large
Mm-hmm.
area in the realm of pathology where it is not just plain misfortune and a plain sickness. It is something meaningful, something purposeful, at times something precious, and at times an asset. So we have to be more judicious and more egalitarian in evaluating what we are dealing with, and not to just dish out certificates of sickness to every deviation that we see, every impairment that we see. A temporary impairment need not necessarily be pathological. It may just be the price that
True.
you pay on your inner developmental journey. And the inner developmental journey may be having a price. It may not be a free lunch. And that price often is converted, in my view, particularly when we are dealing with one group of problems that Stanislav Grof calls spiritual emergencies. What appears on the surface as pathology, if we look at it strictly from a DSM point of view, but in a broader and a deeper analytic point of view, in the context of the journey of life of the individual, it may actually be a part of a deeper developmental process. And often when we label it as a pathology and start medications, many times what was to be a temporary thing and what was to get healed by itself becomes a permanent problem. We
Right.
convert a temporary problem into a permanent problem. And this is true of many people who wrongly get medicated because they are looked at strictly from a narrow DSM point of view. And in those such cases, I'm not saying every case is of that type, but in such cases of spiritual emergencies, which on the surface look like pathology, because they meet the criteria, this the diagnosis and medication and labeling and putting it into the mind of the person, all the wrong that he has, that actually perpetuates it. The best way for that group is to treat it as a developmental passing phase, and it happens that way. It heals by itself. It takes time, but heals by itself. And when it
True.
heals, the person finds himself enriched by that inner journey. Take two very famous inner journeys. Freud's own inner journey of 7 years that Freud calls splendid isolation. When he
Mm-hmm.
was passing through his own neurosis and analyzing himself, he created the whole of psychoanalysis in early years, of course. And then look at Jung. Jung underwent his own inner crisis, what he calls nakia.
Mm-hmm.
Look at, and after Jung came out of nakia, a burst of creativity happened in him. Look at Kohut. In the process of his own healing analysis of Mr. V, he comes out with a completely different set of principles and insights. And
Right.
any person who goes on the spiritual path finds this a very common event in life, that he passes through pathology. So passing through pathology or having a very mild pathology is not something to get terrified of and get into medication and perpetuate and worsen it, what essentially is a part of one's journey.
Very rightly said, and it reminds me of a quote that the crack is the place from where the light enters. So the sufferings can be the sufferings causing the turmoil, inner turmoil, can be the turning point of one's life's purpose towards inner journey.
Right. True.
So this becomes a very fascinating angle to understand pathology when you talk about spirituality. How does spirituality look at it?
Spirituality looks at it very positively. However, I would like to put a balancing caveat here that
Okay.
both extremes are wrong. The view that every pathology is a benign process, a developmental process, a spiritual process is a wrong position. Every pathology is not a benign process or a developmental process. There are instances where pathology is only pathology and nothing else. It is just a misfortune and nothing else,
True.
and has to be treated as sickness and nothing else. Similarly, the other view is also wrong that there is nothing developmental or spiritual or valuable in pathology. All pathology is just a misfortune. So all pathology is neither purely misfortune nor purely fortune. There are groups of these entities. One has to look at the person, the pathology, and the context and find out whether the pathology in question is only a unfortunate pathology, or is it a developmental arrest, or is it a spiritual emergency, or is it a valuable tool for personal growth, or is it a karmic payback, or is it a journey of life, or is it something for developing the strength of a person. And all these possibilities are there. And we have to
Hmm.
contextually determine by looking at the situation, what is it that we are dealing with? And with this caveat, I would go on to what spirituality says so positively. In traditional knowledge, in many schools of spirituality, as the person undertakes
Hmm.
an inner journey, uh, inevitably one comes across the hidden material and a temporary pathology. So a temporary pathology, a temporary worsening of symptoms, if one had some before starting the inner journey, all of these are very natural
Hmm.
occurrences on the spiritual path. So a person with symptoms going into a spiritual path can see new symptoms coming up or existing symptoms worsening. A person without symptoms going in can see emergence of some symptoms as one explores the repressed parts of oneself. So it gets temporarily worse before it gets better forever. So this temporary
Right.
worsening before a permanent healing or betterment is a very natural part of all healing processes and all spiritual processes. Spirituality also looks at it as a karmic payback, that in long-term chronic mental sicknesses, there is a karmic payback. Spirituality also looks at it as the journey of life, that for the journey of life of the individual, apart from karmic payback, there are distinct experiences the person has come to take, and those experiences are possible only with the pathology.
Okay.
And many people on the spiritual path often tell us, looking back at their lives, and say very positively, thank God I had pathology, because had I not had the pathology, I would not have done so much of, accomplished so much of spiritual progress. Because then I would have gone into the
True.
outer world and accomplished something in the outer world, but I would have not had anything in the inner world accomplished. And I thank God that my energies were spent in the inner world and not the outer world. So many people feel that the pathology actually was a blessing. It was a turning point inwards. Otherwise, driven by one's natural desires, one would have spent all his time outwards. So spirituality also looks at pathology as a sort of a spiritual helper, a spiritual direction giver, a spiritual catalyst, that because of it, one takes the inward turn, spends more time inside, starts knowing how the mind operates, and to whatever extent he can, starts generating mastery over the mind. Spirituality also looks at it as a sort of a hyperloop highway to accelerate the spiritual progress. That without pathology, a person would have progressed slowly, but with pathology, he progresses very fast. And pathology, we are talking here in psychoanalytic terms, not in the DSM sense of the term.
Right.
So spirituality looks at it very, very positively. And the spirituality also has a basket full of tools to address pathology, which are very distinct from the tools of modern medicine. So spirituality not only views pathology positively, but uh, not only views pathology as an inevitable part of one's spiritual journey, but also has a basket full of tools to heal pathology and help the person uh, move faster on his spiritual path of progress.
Right. So that's quite a positive standpoint on spirituality with purpose of psychopathology. How do you view the future of pathology and its purpose evolving in near future?
I see it very positively. I see in future people will talk about pathology in a far more positive way, and we will divide the word pathology into various groups. Right?
All right.
Say pathology, which is say pathology X group of pathology, which is nothing more than sickness and disorder. Y group of pathology, which is a developmental arrest. Z group of pathology, which is just because of bad experiences. A group of pathologies, which are spiritual emergencies. B group of pathologies, which are karmic paybacks. C group of pathologies, which are essential elements of soul experiences. And D group of pathologies to bring out the best in you, and E group of pathologies for the inner journey. So this is
Wow.
a kind of categories of pathologies, and we will slowly develop our understanding and basket of tools to deal with each group, because each group needs a different dealing with it.
Very true.
Each group of pathologies needs a very different type of dealing with it. Just as we say which school of psychoanalysis to use for a given person, similarly, how to view a pathology in a given person. And that inevitably leads us to which school to use, or in addition to a school, which other tools to use. So that is one, our definition of pathology will become more nuanced, and we will divide this capsule word, this one word for everything that we use today, into various categories. So the definitional problem will be solved in some way. Secondly, we will have a better understanding of how pathology develops by developing a better model of the mind theory. So in future, as we become more sophisticated in our model of the mind, we will become more sophisticated in genesis of pathology. Because it depends a great deal on our understanding of the model of the mind. Thirdly,
True.
We will also look at uh, pathology in terms of holistic view. That a basket full of tools, not only the classical psychoanalytic tools or CBT tools, but a basket full of tools that we create for a particular person given his pathology and given his context. So
Right.
addressing pathology is something that will be very different. On the social front, the whole destigmatization of pathology, which can be done by social communication using celebrities and by general education, that is another area. And as societies become more psychology mature, psychotherapy mature, this accessing help to overcome pathology in early stages and making psychotherapy
Right.
available to everyone, like biological healthcare, This equating of psychological healthcare and biological healthcare is another social element that I see coming up. And lastly, uh, I see in the understanding of pathology in terms of its genesis and healing both, valuable insights and tools coming from the areas of parapsychology, mysticism, and spirituality. And these areas already have a storehouse of tools and a storehouse of insights which we have not incorporated into psychoanalysis or psychotherapy by dismissing them as unscientific. In future,
Right.
as these areas get more and more empirically validated, we will see enrichment of our classical way of engaging with pathology with insights and tools from these areas, which will enrich our entire holistic healing process.
Right. So today we have discussed a fascinating subject, psychopathology, purpose, or mere misfortune. Do write to us at hvindia@gmail.com for your suggestions and feedbacks. Namaste.
Namaste.